taxes!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 148 of 901 Lone Star Round. I'm one of your hosts, Grace, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Katie and EJ.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Today, we are going to be talking about Season 8, Episode 18 of 901, which is titled Seismic Shifts, which is also the Season 8 finale. We finally made it, guys. We got here.
It's hard to believe we're only at the end of season 8. It feels like we've had like 5 seasons.
It really does. Like what
It's
the heck was this season? Like honestly, I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the whole season because honestly, I'm just like I keep seeing videos pop up like online at my feed of like just different things that have happened, not only just in this season but in the series. I'm like, wait, that happened.
I know. The breaks did no help, so I think it'd be interesting to watch it all together and see if it still feels like so much. I think it definitely will feel like a very heavy season, but I'd be interested to know what it feels like to watch it all back to back.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, it's been a trip, you guys. And this is the culmination of it. So of course we have so much to talk about. There's a lot that happened in this episode, so we're gonna get straight into it. So we get the lead up to the collapse, and we have a mother moving her daughter into her new apartment.
Mother is Constance Marie. And
I know, I recognize her right off the
I
bat.
like the mom from Switch to Birth, but she also played opposite Benito Martinez in With Love, the Amazon series that he was in.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
she
that.
played his wife, and I was like, oh my god, now we've got another connection to Benito in 911.
That's funny. I am not familiar with this actress personally, but that is a funny connection that she's connected to Benito. And she's worried about it not being safe with no doorman, and she's just kind of picking at a little bit of a lot of things, right? And we are kind of incorporating this with the scene that we saw at the end of last episode with Athena and Graham and him going back and check the lint trap for the thong.
Clear his name.
Clear his name. Oh, Graham. And then we see the collapse. And then we go back to the 118 and we see a goodbye party for Eddie. Hen wanted to throw Eddie this backyard party, but she didn't have much time. And Eddie says, simple's best, and Chris wanted to see the firehouse one last time before they left. And Ravi is asking when Eddie starts, and he says how he reports 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And Buck's just sitting in the corner. He just looks dejected.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the best way I can put it. He's just dejected. I don't blame him for everything that's been happening these last few episodes.
Yeah, he's been through the ringer for sure.
And Chris says how Dad is going to go back to school, and he says how he'll be doing training. Well, Chris gets to hang out by swimming pools all summer. And Hen asks if Eddie's packed, and then he says how he didn't need to pack much this time. And Shem tells him that he might need to make room for some more items. And they bring out his turnouts and his 118 helmet. Eddie is surprised, and Hen says how normally they'd get that you get it at your retirement party, but since he's not sticking around for that, Gerard agreed to let them give them to him now. And then he's like, thank you, says how great it is, and he doesn't know how they talked him into it. And Buck says how he was in a good mood. Today's his last day, and he's like, what? But Chim says how he told him this morning Hot Tots got picked up for another season. And Chim is pretty sure he thought the banner was for him.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, no. Eddie is like, so this means, and then stops and is like, well, what does this mean? I'm like, actually, a really good question. And Buck says how it means 118 is finally going to have a decent captain again. And Hen says how she hopes that's true, but it's not going to be her. And Ravi is like, wait, what? He thinks that Chief passed her over, but Hen explains that he didn't, and she turned it down. Hen says how she's sorry, but she just doesn't need that right now. Buck says how she doesn't have to apologize, and says how she just has to do what is best for her. And Hen's like, you're really okay with that? And Buck says how, of course he is. And Chim asks if he's throwing his helmet into the ring, and Buck's like, for captain? He says no, and then he tells them that he has put in for a transfer. Eddie is like, out of the 118, and Buck says how it's just a number now. And yeah.
I'm like,
Again,
my
dejected.
heart, my literal heart when he said it's just a number now, and just we know he's been dealing with like just not the 118 feeling like family, like everyone's kind of like distant from each other, Which is
Mhm.
so sad because I keep seeing like not just edits but videos of like that one scene a couple seasons ago or quite a few seasons ago where Buck is like asking like what happened to like the other people in the 118 and like asking if they still talk and like they're like no, not really. And
Mm.
Buck's like, well, that wouldn't happen to us, would it? And they're like, of course not, we're family. And then it's just like where we are now, and I'm just like, oh, it hurts my heart.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of thoughts on this scene, but I'm not going to comment on most of it. I think watching Buck obviously be very sad and say he's putting in for a transfer. Obviously, that like is very difficult for him. I understand he's going through a lot right now. I'm gonna have a lot to say about as far as the hen thing goes, but I'm gonna save that till the end of the episode for the most part because I've got a lot of things to say about that one. So unless you guys have anything else, I'm gonna move on to the next scene.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I feel bad that Buck feels like he needs to leave the 118. But I also understand why he's feeling that way. We've been through this, and I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and I was saying, like honestly, Buck has never experienced any firehouse outside of the 118, so it might be good for him if the series decides to take it that way for at least a little bit of season 9 of having him not in the 118. But I don't know. I was a little surprised that he decided to do that, especially so soon after Bobby passed away, but I get it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely because let's honestly, no one except Bobby had been part of a firehouse outside the 118, to my knowledge. Hen started there, Chim started there, Eddie and Buck both started there. Robbie has been at least on a different shift. I think he was also maybe in a different station at some point, or maybe he was just in a different shift. I don't.
Yeah, then he was a trainer at the academy for a while too.
Yeah.
So the pro we out of all of them has the most outside experience. So it would be difficult, like it'd be difficult for anyone to adjust. Especially since we've all worked there for quite a few years at this point. So definitely an interesting thing going on there. And then we're back at the scene of the collapse, and Athena reports to dispatch that there's been an incident. They can't really hear clearly because of the rumbling from the collapse. And Linda is trying to hear Athena, but there's too much rumbling, and she asks her if she needs backup, and Athena says to send everybody. And I'm just going to make a note. I did not realize that Linda was in like the last episode because I think this is like the first time in this series that they've actually changed her hair. She's
Yeah.
wearing braids now and they look fantastic on her, but I
Right.
literally did not recognize her when I saw her last
Yeah,
episode until you all
yeah,
mentioned
Yeah.
it was her.
yeah.
And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
No,
so
they
like
look
when she was
fantastic,
in the
but I
last
didn't.
episode, I was like, when was the last episode she was in? Because I knew it had been a while, and then it was like season 6, and I'm like,
Wow.
damn. And yeah, like, yeah, that's
Yeah, no. I mean, the braids look great on her. It was the fact that it was a different hairstyle and we've seen her with the same one the entire time, or at least some variation of the same one, that I was like, oh, wait, that's why I didn't recognize. It's amazing what we use to recognize people.
Yeah.
And
Right.
anyway, that's just a small tangent. That's a small little side trail on my end. But love seeing Linda again. And so Sue also steps in, love seeing Sue, and asks what she needs. Athena says 50 officers on a 6-block perimeter and a full FD response. Heavy rescue. The whole building just came down. And Sue confirms that the address is a high rise with 19 stories. And Athena says how? Not anymore. It's not. Like,
that's a good way to put it, I guess.
yeah, definitely. And people come out as Athena is trying to go back and check on things. When she does get inside, she finds her girlfriend, Crystal, Donnie, her boyfriend, and Graham. And Donnie and Graham are both crushed. Donnie got the worst of it, and he can't breathe, so they have to give him a little bit more breathing room. And they used a mop handle for that to lift up concrete.
I was like, no, that thing had snapped like a toothpick.
I guess
I'm
you
like, sure,
work with what
it,
you
but
got.
Right.
absolutely. But I was like, there's no way that could lift up an entire chunk of concrete.
Yeah, logically that
Whatever.
would not happen.
But you know what? This is our silly little weeboo show. But I was just like, what do you mean? But yeah, no, this is, they do that, but it's still pretty bad. And listen, I've been hating Donnie this entire time because he's been an absolute asshole this entire time, even when his girlfriend's
Right.
telling him to shut up. But definitely feel a little like, okay, that is unfortunate for you. That's really unfortunate. And so the 118 is now on scene. Gerard is talking with dispatch, and Maddie says that they've got 20 calls about this and how they're still trying to find out what caused it. Jim says, I have an idea, which is when Gerard yells to shut off the water and kill the utilities, and that they can already be looking at gas pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Gerard orders Buck and Ravi to start extrication with the latter. Can we just talk for a second about how he calls them pretty boys?
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I mean, you're not wrong, but also like, what?
Gerard, I'm sorry. Are you feeling okay? Are you good?
Did not expect it to come from him.
This
I
entire,
mean,
like,
in
his
a
latest
sense, I
appearance
did.
is so odd.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Not even in a bad way necessarily. That's maybe the odd thing, is that he's not being a complete asshat.
I know, like the Gerard in this episode, I'm like, who is this guy?
I wasn't,
Like,
yeah, even in the last couple, even last episode, he wasn't as bad as he could have been at all. Like, he was still just, like, kind of rough. I'm like, were you replaced with a clone?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Which I get, like, grief does do that on people. Not to say that he's changed, but it can, like, make you think of things. So maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want to give him any credit, but I'm just saying, like, logically thinking, that's what I think of.
It's a little odd to be hating him on just, like, merit rather than, like, for something he's actively doing in the episode, and it's very odd
Yeah,
feeling. No,
right.
I'm not necessarily upset that they decided not to go the route of, like, throwing in a conflict storyline with him, because that would have been a lot to have over the last couple of episodes.
Not to mention we've already pretty much had that.
Right.
Exactly. And I do think that Buck, Chim, and Ravi would have actually teamed up and killed him this time if that had happened. Like, oh no, another saw blade. But I'm not mad about it. I'm just very confused. Anyway, back on track. So the pretty boys start with that. And someone yells from above, and Hen says how they will need more than a ground ladder. And Hen tells them to stay back from the edge and that they're coming. This is the daughter trying to get help for her mother. And Gerard yells to get the aerial, and Chim and Hen go up. So we're back at dispatch, and Sue tells the dispatchers what they know. She says there has to be there's an explosion of unknown origin that triggered a structural collapse. Police, fire, and rescue are on the scene with more on the way. And Maddie says the management company says there are 255 apartments. They're sending over a tenant list now. It should be somewhere north of 300 people. And Sue says that since it's LA, they can't completely trust that list. A unit is considered clear until they have spoken to the tenant and confirmed who is in the apartment this morning and what their status is. Hen and Chim get to this woman, and her orbital bone is like filled with fluid, which was very gross to see. For sure.
It was like,
The way it was pulsing for a second, I was like, are they going to try
oh,
saying that to like her heart and her forehead or something? Like, what are they going to try spinning here?
Right.
I was like, what? Which like already like her face had been bruised on one side. She had a cracked like cheek, a broken cheek. But like then they turned her over and it's like, oh,
yeah.
that is
Yeah.
unfortunate. Very odd. And Athena's in the building and her radio won't go through. So she tells Crystal to go get a medic and tell them that Sergeant Grant sent her. And Donnie tore an artery when he was telling Crystal not to go, and Athena tells her to get a medic. Athena is looking for something to use to put pressure on the wound, but Graham does it with his hands. Athena says, how that's good. And then Hen, we're back on the rooftop, and Hen figures that not rooftop, but an upper story. And Hen figures out that air is leaking into her cranial cavity and it's putting pressure on her brain. So they have to relieve it, which she does with a needle. And I will say, I'm not particularly bad about needles, but I did look away during this one personally because I was like, oh, I don't know that I want to watch that. That is making me anxious. I'm not even really bad with needles. That's just that needle.
Yeah, things
Yeah,
near the
thanks.
eyes kind of freak me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it does freak me out just like a little bit. Like, other things are fine, but like just the thought of this just really just grossed me out.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some gross things in shows that whenever it's eyes, for whatever reason, I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah, it really is it's just that. Yeah, no, I agree. And Linda has a caller who's calling from the ninth floor, but it sounds like they're whispering. So Maddie talks with him, but when she asks for the apartment number, he just says help and the call gets disconnected. They find out the caller is a Flint West, and they find that out by calling him back, and his voicemail is him kind of being an asshole. And I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Then Crystal finds Chim, and she's panicking, but she explains that her boyfriend is inside the laundry room, and this lady told her, but she can't get the words out, so Chim tells her to keep breathing. Chim gets her to sit and breathe, and he's like, so you said there's a lady with him, and Crystal's like, yeah, the police lady, Sergeant Grant. And when Chim hears that, he calls Hen over. He asks her to take over the panic attack, and she asks Chim where he's going. He says to the laundry room, this girl's boyfriend is down there. It sounds like Athena needs help. And Hen's like, Athena, do you want me to go? Because remember, we left off with Athena and Chim not necessarily on great terms, professional level. But Chim says how he has it. So we are back at the call center, and Sue says that there's 7 unclear apartments on the. Not one of them is in Flint West's name. And Maddie asks if they have numbers for any of the tenants. Maddie makes calls to find Flint, and several calls later, she gets in contact with Flint's ex-wife. Not her saying, did something happen to Flint? The last time I talked to him, I told him drop dead. He's not gonna make good on that, is he?
I was just like, maybe don't admit to that.
Right.
I mean, common sentiment among ex-spouses, let's be real.
Right.
True.
And yeah, but maybe don't share that until they find out the actual cause of the explosion. That'd be a lot though to take out your ex-husband is to blow up his entire apartment building.
Right.
It wouldn't be the first time something like that happened, though.
True. Anyhow,
But
so we're all
like in this situation, we all know what caused this. And my whole thought process is like, okay, so they knew this was happening around like the city, but they didn't like. So people were like doing laundry, using water, and I'm just like, you would have thought that they would have shut the water off or something.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's not like they're using it anyway, right? I don't know. They did say that like there was very little left in the system. So
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. It was definitely just negligent.
I what I was watching like at the beginning of it when it all kind of started. I think what ended up happening is when Donnie went to slam the door shut, it had been in the middle of a wash cycle, so there was a lot more water in the system, like in the tank. And I think when he slammed it, the metal door kind of like sparked, maybe. And
Oh yeah,
caused
Probably.
methane was in the area to just combust, which is what caused the explosion. I'm like, that's the only thing I could think of that would make logical sense.
Yeah, they didn't really explain it all that much then.
And then there was an explosion from up above, but yet they were in the basement. So I'm like, did it travel up or I don't know. It was weird.
My
I
only
think it was
guess
probably
with
multiple.
Yeah.
my only guess with that is maybe just something else, like was unstable, some other form of gas. Well, I think the later explosion was a gas pocket, according to what
Yeah.
Gerard said.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. They didn't really explain it like they usually explain their emergencies, even if they usually just
Yeah.
explain it by like an earthquake or something, which was sort of the root cause of some of this. But
Right.
anyhow, definitely interesting way they went around about it. But Maddie has Buck and Ravi check in on Flint, who is likely injured in an apartment 912. So they go to check, and when they do, Ravi almost stepped down where the floor caved in a few floors down, and Buck saved him.
Yeah. Like,
And I will say,
good reflexes.
it is very reminiscent of Tommy yanking Bobby back from the flashback we got in that episode.
That's true.
I have seen a couple of side by side gifs of it. I was like, oh, that's actually okay. Fair enough. But Maddie asked Buck if he found 912, and he says, yeah, but he thinks it's more like 712 now.
Yeah, that was a good line. I like that.
Yeah. They found Flint, and he is crushed by the wardrobe. And we love the comment of Ravi saying you're gonna pull him from the back of the wardrobe, and Buck saying if we can make it to Narnia. See, I love the Narnia reference, don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
But they could have also made an out of the closet joke there, and I would have been even happier.
Yeah, that could have
I would have been here for it, but like we all
Yeah,
know they're
either
not
one.
gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been better if Buck said it, let's be real.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Not that he was ever really in the closet. But anyway, that's beside the point. So they pull him out. He says thanks. But Buck says he can thank his ex-wife, and Flynn's like, Marge? She hasn't spoken to me in years. And Buck's like, luckily she speaks to 911. So I'm guessing that since they got into contact with the ex-wife, like the apartment was still under her name. So I'm like, how does that all work?
Yeah, that's interesting. Good question.
I mean, yeah, anyhow, who knows? But that's just an interesting thing I was thinking of. But anyway, there's some rumbling and they have to take cover. They all have to get down. Hen asks what the hell just happened, and Gerard says it was a gas pocket. After Graham was coughing, so Athena asks if he's okay. And so Athena's around, she's checking things out, and she realizes that the opening they had is now closed. She calls Chim over and told him that they lost their way out. So now we go away from the whole collapse thing, and we are with Eddie, Peppa, and Chris. Eddie is packing his duffel, and he has his turnouts and helmet pack. And we all love Peppa saying, "Good luck getting that stuff into your duffel." And Eddie saying, "Maybe I'll wear it on the plane." Yeah,
That's
sure.
one way to do it.
That'd go real well.
You're not gonna be
TSA will
cold,
like,
I guess.
And you're covered if some fire breaks out on the plane.
Exactly. That shit is heavy as fuck though. Anyway, but Beppa's like, first Ramon steals my mother, and then my two favorite nephews. And then he's like, Peppa, we're only a phone call away. I just love that Peppa continually seems to have like some small beef with Ramon of like, he stole my mother.
Yes.
Honestly, here for it.
And she's
Here
not happy with
for
her
it.
brother. Yeah.
I don't blame the
Yeah.
woman.
I love Peppa.
Same.
We love Peppa. We're your Peppa stands. Peppa and Abuela, I want them move back, Abuela, please. Anyway, she's like, a phone call on the plane ride. And Eddie's like, speaking of which, we gotta leave soon. And Chris calls Eddie over, and when Eddie goes over, the news is on, and he's seen everything that's happening with the apartment collapse. And as Eddie watches, he sees the 118 truck, and it pans to Eddie's helmet next to him. And we're like, aha!
Happens to have his turnouts with him.
I already knew where this was going. I
Me
actually
too.
had made like predictions before the episode, and I was just like, I already had a feeling that what is gonna happen happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was spoiled for it, but because obviously I don't watch these until a couple days later, so spoiler in loose terms. But I kind of was expecting it. Obviously, he was going to come save the day in some way.
Yeah.
And so Buck and Ravi, after the explosion, Gerard is radioing, asking them if they have an exit, and Buck says they will make one. Hen can't reach Jim, so Gerard tells her to take two other firefighters with her. And he says if the building shifts again, and Hen is like, we evacuate, got it, and she runs. I love that I do love that he's not being a problem.
Yeah.
Like, he is letting them do their thing to some degree, just with a little bit of guidance, and I'm like,
Yeah.
gosh, if you weren't such an asshat, I would like this more.
Right.
But we'll take it. We'll take it. Chim and Athena stuck inside still, and Athena asks if anyone knows they're here, and Chim says how Hen does. He tells Athena that she actually offered to come down here instead of him, and Athena's face like, oh. And Chim checks on Donnie and asks if he feels the saline cocktail kicking in, but he's fading. And Chim asks Graham to shake him, but Donnie is not waking up. And it's so funny because the entire span of this episode, I am feeling reluctantly sorry for Donnie because I hated him from before the collapse. I was like, you're being such an asshole, and then he's in this position. I'm like,
Right.
okay, now I'm just reluctantly feeling bad for him.
Yeah, no, it's hard because it's like he had been such a dick, and then all of a sudden he's like hurting. And it's funny because I recognized the guy.
Same.
And I was like, where do I know this guy from? So I did just look him up. It's Adam Hagenbach. And so I think I recognize him from Fuller House over Switched at Birth, but it's now there's two Switched at Birth actors.
Oh my god. Wait, no, that's
episode.
because I realized it in the last episode right away. I was like, yep, that literally those two show. Well, I kind of forgot about the second one until you just said that, but now it's like really connected.
Yeah, he was in 15 episodes of Switched at Birth, and I was like, oh my god. And then we got Constance Marie. And it's so funny because the guy who plays, I think we've talked about this before, but the gal who plays Eddie's mom is married to the guy that plays the detective that Athena tends to work with, Romero.
Rick
And I
Romero,
was
yeah.
like, oh my
Oh
god.
my
Talked
God.
about like small world, and he was, because he was in Switched Up Earth. I'm like, what did they do? Just like go down the list, like who can we cast now?
It's so funny because my brain just said, like, I've never heard of Switch at Birth before, I'm pretty sure, but and my brain just went, so you're telling me they passed up on the opportunity to like make a storyline of the daughter and Dottie being switched at birth? Sure, there's probably an age difference there. Roll with me on it, okay? But
Right.
like,
Right.
I'm like, that could have been funny.
Yeah. Sorry,
And
tangent. I was just like, dude, this guy looks so familiar. I need to figure out how I know him. And then like to
Oh
look him
yeah.
up. I
See
was
me,
like,
I
yeah.
just realized it right off the way, at least for one show. I was like, yep, that's it.
Chim takes his vitals. Chim thinks he's about to arrest, and they can't do CPR, so they have to defibrillate him. And Chim has Graham put the defibrillator pads on him, and then they're able to shock him and get him back in sinus rhythm. Gerard is asking where Buck and Ravi are. Buck says at Bravo Wall and tells Gerard to look up. He's like, well, you can't come back the way you came, and Buck says no, that the ceiling has come down and they have lost their anchor point. And then there's yet another explosion, and Buck radios that it's really unstable up here. And Gerard says how it's raining concrete down here, too, and that he's calling for more USAR. And then Eddie shows up and says there's no time for that. Gerard's like, Diaz, what are you doing here? And Eddie says how he thought he'd lend a hand. Gerard tells him to start looking debris and says that they have to put a ladder in here. And Eddie says to Gerard, with all due respect, sir, by the time we clear a path, we won't need a ladder. The building will be at our feet. And Gerard says they don't have a choice. Eddie says that if Bobby taught me anything, it's that we always have a choice.
I do have opinions on this part of the scene, and I don't know if you guys felt this. And honestly, I kind of blanked on it until the rewatch. But this scene was giving hot shots with the music in the background. I was just like, why is this overly dramatized more than usual?
It was very try. It was like, oh, heroes swooping in to
catch
save
that.
the day, heroic
Yeah.
music. Yeah, it was very Hot Shots-esque. I agree.
I was just like,
Yeah.
oh my god, what are we watching? Are we watching the what were they, like the 119?
Right.
119, yeah.
Or the 118?
Hen is trying to get to them. Meanwhile, the building keeps crumbling. Buck asks for an update, and Eddie radios, I don't know about down there, but I have an update up here. Robbie's like, Eddie? And Eddie says how he was watching the news and he had a bit of FOMO. Buck asks where Eddie is, and Eddie says right in front of you. And as Buck looks out, we see him on a building across the street, a parking garage. Eddie explains that a ladder would have took too long, so Eddie grabbed a line gun off the rig. It's funny how Flint goes, he has a gun?
Oh yeah, that was so funny though.
This all felt like a little bit of an action scene to some degree.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this though. Like I was just
No,
like,
this is a good
ooh,
idea.
this is kind of cool.
Yeah. This reminded me of Towering Inferno.
Mm.
Where they run the line from the banquet hall upstairs all the way to the other building.
See, the only thing this just reminded me of was Star Wars: The Clone Wars, on the episode on Christophsis, because they have a line between buildings.
Oh.
If anyone knows that episode I'm talking about, feel free to rave with me about it. Anyway, I have many thoughts. Anyway, but that's the only thing I was thinking of with this. I was like, why do I feel like I'm watching an episode of the Clone Wars? Except significantly more people die in transit on that one than here.
Oh. I shouldn't be laughing if people died, but it was just funny connection.
It is. No, I said it to be funny, so this was cool to see. They all get down, and Ravi just plows into Eddie, hugging him, and says, "That was genius, man. How'd you even think of that?" And he's like, "Well, I thought if Bobby were here, what kind of crazy stunt would he be yelling at Buck for pulling?"
That was so good. Like just that would happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Buck would be that one pulling the stunt.
Yeah, if it
Except
was. Yeah, he's like, he would totally. I mean, he would love to play with the toys, so of course Buck would.
I mean, he rammed his way into the apartment earlier, like
He does love the
using the heli.
toys.
Right.
And Buck says, "No, this one's all on you," and they do a fist bump.
Yeah, I love that.
So Hen is trying to get through the wall, and she says to get the hammer because this can take some time. And Eddie just coming up behind her and being like, "Where do you want us?" And she's
Like
obviously
fucking Robbie right behind him, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm. And this does give, I will say, this gives the other earthquake vibes a little bit of when they all came together to rescue her because
Mhm.
she was
Oh
trapped
yeah.
in there. Gives a little bit of that.
And also when Dispatch was on fire and they all ran in to save Bobby.
Yeah,
True.
that too.
True. They all pull together. And like she's obviously very relieved that it's them and they are able to drill an opening. Hen yells for Athena and Chim, and Athena is like, "You found us." Chim is like, "And you brought the whole gang."
I
Wow.
loved
know,
that
he was like,
line. That
"First."
was so good. It was
Uh-huh.
like the whole 118 back together again.
Yeah. I have two patients ready for extrication. Donnie goes first, and then Graham and Hen tells Athena that she should go too, but she says that she's seen this one through. She tells Graham that he is relieved of his laundry room duties, and he's like, "Copy that, Sergeant." But then when they lift the rubble off of Graham, they realize that he has been impaled by rebar into his stomach. And I'm like, well, it feels fitting to have Chimla in this situation.
Right. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
very reminiscent of season 1.
Yeah.
A little bit. A very different circumstances, but rebar.
Right.
And he's like, oh, he's only in a little pain, but that's adrenaline talking. And when I saw this, like, I don't know, I became fond of Graham. Like, even early
Mhm.
when he was originally attacked during his original episode, I was like, I mean, he's a little bit of a pain, but like he's a really like nice guy. And so
Yeah.
I saw this, I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, is this about to take a turn? And Penn says how the rebar must have just missed his spinal cord, and Chim says, must have, he can move all his extremities, because he had checked that early on. And Hen says how it must have just nicked his abdominal aorta. Hen says that his stomach is hot, and Chim is like, he's been bleeding internally this whole time. And Athena asks why didn't Graham say anything, and he says how he knew he was dead, but Donnie needed more help than him. So I think I started crying a little bit right about here. I actually
Yeah.
cried during this episode, and I think I
Yeah.
started around this time. I was
Right.
like, oh my god, that's so selfless. Like, even like, I don't know. And I will say Donnie had said like thank you earlier. Like he had kind of been a little bit like obviously Graham was trying to save him. So he had said thank you before. But I was like, wow, you are like you literally put your life on line for someone who was not like the greatest person you know, and
Mhm.
that's pretty great. But it's also like, oh my god, Graham. So Athena's like, so you sacrificed yourself? And Graham says how it was the right thing to do. And then they all kind of realize what's happening there, but Chim's like, not today. Graham and Chim says, but Ravi cut him free and cut as close to the body as possible. He tells Eddie to go get a backboard O2 and all the fluids we can get. And Hen helps Chim with the extrication. Graham says that he's feeling chilly, and Ravi says that he's losing consciousness. Athena tells him to keep his eyes open and tells him to look at her. He keeps yelling at him to keep his eyes open, but
It kind of collapses against Robbie.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of a interesting, but it made sense.
Mhm. And they get him free and onto the backboard. Like he has lost consciousness by this point. And I kind of like that. Like Athena seems to be like kind of reluctantly fond of Graham, and like
Mhm.
she was like very very much not wanting to see him die on her. I'm just saying he would make an absolutely awful cop, but I wouldn't be against seeing him come back in season 9 just as like with Athena maybe mentoring him a little bit or something
Yeah.
in some kind of way. I wouldn't be against it. I'm just saying. I'm kind of down for it. But so he's tachycardic, so they run a line wide open and they all work on him. Athena tells him that they are all here fighting with him. They keep doing compressions, and Athena's telling him that he's not allowed to give up and he's not allowed to quit on them. They keep going, and Chim says to push a round of Epi. The Athena keeps telling him to come on, and is like, Chim, and Chim's like, I'm not calling it, keep going. They get a pulse, and they get him back, and they get him out of there. He gets to the hospital, and Athena just stands there, and Chim walks out and sees her, and Chim says that he's going to be okay, and Athena says, thank you, like, thanks to you, he saved his life, and Chim says how it was a team effort, and Athena tells Chim, that used to make him crazy. Bobby, he always said that you never gave yourself enough credit, but he knew that you were a smart, talented, capable paramedic and a great leader. He'd be so proud of you. And then she repeats, so proud of you. And Chim hugs Athena. And this was such a perfect scene. I was really hoping that they would resolve it a little bit between them before like the season ended.
Mhm.
And I'm glad they did.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like how the scene panned out. I don't really think there needed to be like this whole dramatic or them like talking about things. I think Athena realized what Chim was doing in this scene and
Yeah.
realized that that's what Bobby trained them to do.
Right.
They would help anybody, they would do what they can, and obviously Athena knows that like that's obviously what Bobby was doing, that's what Chim's doing, and it was like a full circle moment too.
Yeah.
And I know some people were disappointed that they didn't really like hash things out or talk things, but it was obviously something that like Athena had to work through in her own mind and for
Right.
herself. It didn't need to be this whole like dramatic or this whole thing where they're in there like arguing or having like this conversation. Like the way that this all happened was honestly perfect.
Well, and I think Athena had to work through it because we know kind of in the episodes after the Bobby passing away that she even made comments about, well, he chose to leave me, and the she didn't understand why he did what he did and why he didn't say
Right.
anything. And so this was her like having a second perspective of Graham telling her why he chose to do what he did. And like Graham knew, like in Graham's mind, he was dead because of where he was. He was bleeding, so he was doing the right thing by helping Donnie. And Athena needed to see that perspective again because there was a lot that she missed in her emotions. And I think this was a good opportunity for her to connect to.
Yeah, for sure. Like I didn't like I kind of got the messaging, but I didn't really like think it through until literally now that like this really paralleled like Bobby's sacrifice, except they were actually able to save Graham this time. And like I think that was very important. And honestly, I'm very glad it happened like this. Not saying that adults can have arguments or anything like that. Like they happen frequently. They're falling out. There are issues and stuff like that. But I thought the way they handled it was actually very adult and professional. And also there wasn't like Athena literally acknowledged last episode that like she knows it's not fair. Like
Yeah.
that Chim hadn't done anything wrong, that she was just
Right.
feeling her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I would have been a lot more disappointed if they had been arguing about this because there's nothing to argue about. Like, what is there to
Exactly.
argue about? It's not like Chim did
Right.
something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby did what he did, because that's the kind of person he is, the kind of leader he was. And of course, it breaks everyone's heart, especially Athena's. Like, that's the love of her life. But she, at the core, knew who Bobby was, and all she needed was just a little bit of perspective to make her remember that. But it wasn't even like she was learning something new. She was just remembering. It's a little hard to see
Right.
past the pain sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think this was just very respectful. It was very respectful of them as people. It's very respectful of who they are in their lives at this point in time in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was truly like this, like them mending like their relationship was a tribute to Bobby
Oh yeah,
because
for sure.
his impact was so great that it caused a rift, but it ultimately mended it. And I just think it was really amazing. So I'm glad it resolved like this.
Same.
That's my take on that.
And I loved their hug.
Their
Yeah.
hug.
I felt it.
That definitely choked me up, just the two of them.
I think the 118 could all use to hug each other, and that would help a lot of things. But this is a good start.
Yes.
So they all get back to the station, and Gerard says 118. He just heard from headquarters the number of fatalities from the collapse was 0.
Awesome.
Which, from that kind of thing, that is miraculous.
Right.
And so, that's the hand of God at your hands. He says, magnificent teamwork out there today. It's been my honor to take my last ride with men and women of your quality. And he thanks them. I'm like, is that the most progressive Gerard has ever been?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm like, wow.
You know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. And Eddie pulls out his phone and Chim asks him what he's doing. And Eddie says how he's looking for flights for him and Chris for a red eye. He still needs to be in El Paso at 7 a.m. And he's like, make that 6, they're an hour ahead. And Chim tells Eddie to wait and Ravi to hold up. And he tells everyone to just stop. He takes Eddie's phone and is like, especially you. And he's like, hey. Chim tells Eddie he's not getting on any red eye. And Buck's like, he's not. And Chim says no. Chim says, and no one's transferring out, and nobody's staying in Texas. He goes on this whole speech. He says, this is our firehouse, this is the 118, and it's not just a number, it's us. And you're right, Buck. Things are never going to be the same again because Cap is gone. But leaving won't change that. It won't make you feel any less sad, it just means you'll be sad all alone. Bobby died so I could live, and it screwed me up in ways that I cannot fully express, but the truth is he would have done that for any of us. You see, he already knew that just coming into work every day, there's a chance one or more of us would not make it home. And his job above everything else was to make sure that we did. And we're all standing here right now because of him. This team, we are his legacy, so we can miss him and we can mourn him. And we can even curse his name, but we're not going to disrespect him by throwing away what he built right here. So you hang up your turnouts, you hit the showers, you go home and you get some rest because we're all gonna see each other on next shift right here together. Understood? Chim walks away and they're all standing right there and Head's like, copy that, Cap. And then she's like, I mean, Chim. And Chim hears that, stops for a moment, but then walks off.
I love this scene. I think this speech is probably my favorite of the whole episode. Well, there's like 2 moments the whole episode are my favorite. I just think this speech was really impactful and just everyone needed to hear this. And just the fact of like Hen's reaction being like, copy that, Cap. I'm just like, what are they trying to set up? And I know like, we want Hen to be captain, but I don't know, like Jim never wanted that in the past, but I feel like, obviously he's grown as a person and these past like, 8 seasons and stuff like that. And I wouldn't knock it down. I feel like he led in this episode. He really did. And
Yeah.
I don't know, we'll see what happens, but you never know.
Yeah. I'll keep my thoughts about that till the end actually, because I have a fair amount to say.
Yeah, no, I first off, Ryan and Oliver were serving. They looked gorgeous and they were dirty. They were looking really good in this scene. But this was a really important scene because, we've all joked about like acting Captain Han in the past because we've experienced Chim and Captain role. But I think Athena and him resolving it, like kind of coming to an agreement or something, and her making a comment about how he always belittled himself or never took him, like, I can't remember exactly how she said it, but that he was more of a leader than he thought he was. And this was a good thing. And his speech was very powerful. I think I choked up about that. I was like, yeah, okay, we're going there. Okay.
Yeah, everyone needed to hear that. And I loved how he just like took Eddie's phone. It kind of reminded me how Eddie did that to Buck earlier this season. So honestly, like overdue, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, someone was watching this scene and they pointed out something really funny. And it's the fact that you can tell this was 2 separate takes, all mashed into one, because of one giveaway. Sometimes Eddie's suspenders are up and sometimes they're down.
Oh, really? I didn't catch
If you
that.
go back and watch, it's between like different shots. They're either up or down, up or down. It's like he's doing this the entire time.
Yeah. See, that stuff
Someone
doesn't
pointed that
phase
out,
me
like,
too much because I
no,
know
I think it's
they
just so funny.
film it. Yeah, because there have been like several things like in past seasons where they obviously use different takes and it's just
Yeah.
like it's funny.
Just something like that. I don't care. It's does
Yeah.
not matter. I don't even know that I would have noticed if someone had not pointed it out
Right.
to me, right? But I just think it's really funny when you can just be like, oh yeah, this is a show. It's a
Yeah.
show and
Right.
someone missed that editing, but it's okay. Like it's fine. It's funny. So I thought I'd tell you all that. And then we get an end montage, and I forgot how much I actually really like the end of season montages. And so we see Athena walking into this building with white walls. We see her in a house walking around the corner, looking around, and she looks at the picture that Karen gave her. And she's talking with a realtor. And he says how it's an amazing property and he thinks that it will be a bidding war. So she is officially selling the house. She is walking into this building.
Guys, I'm not crazy, but like the delusion, I was like, where is Athena? I'm like, and like everyone online had this feeling. I'm just like, wait, are they really gonna go there? And I'm like, yeah, they're not going there.
Yeah, because I was like, is she walking into some government facility?
Yeah.
You know, she got a call.
Like,
And
guys, I know,
walk in.
like, okay, I would not put it past them because they've done a lot of crazy things, but also I'm just like the delusion was just like there, and I'm just like, wait, why? Because like you can't tell it's a hospital until like later in the scene. Like it's a very like stark white building, and she's just
Mhm.
walking around practically like, she's speeding around that building, and I'm just like, wait, is this? And I'm like, no, they wouldn't do that. That would be just so cruel to have us go through all this
But
trauma for that to be the ending. But like,
Mhm.
it's just, and there's other things that I'll mention later, just
Yeah.
about parallels, I guess. But yeah, that's my like little Delulu moment watching this.
see, I didn't think of that at all. So when I read that in parentheses, I was like,
You're like, what is she
what do
talking
you
about?
mean?
Yeah,
What kind of delusion? What?
I know, and I always use parentheses as my own thoughts.
Which is so fair, but I read that and I was like, oh, is this a note for me? And I was like, the fuck? So that's fine. Okay, cool. Fair enough. So yeah. Well, Athena is walking around in this building. Again, at first we don't really know what it is. We see an open house sign outside Athena's house as she leaves. And we see like this kind of young couple looking around, like they obviously really seem to like the house already. And she brings a picture with her. And yeah, that is such a monumental moment for sure.
That's been her place,
And
that property for, since the beginning of the series. And we know that, Michael built the house there for her, and they raised their family there. And then when they divorced and her and Bobby got together and he moved in, it's so, for her to be letting it go is a big deal.
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would say
which
that's probably been
it makes total sense too, because a lot of people when they are alone, they don't necessarily want to have this big house because obviously it's like a lot to care for, or like it's just obviously it'll be lonely if it's just her.
Yeah.
And
especially since that's just living with the memories of that was her and Bobby's dream house that they
right, that was
designed
supposed to be
together.
like their retirement essentially.
Right.
Which is why I think like showing the couple outside, like looking around, obviously happy at this house, it's like, oh, it's someone else's dream house now. I've seen a lot of people speculating that this was gonna happen. And it's like as tough as that is, I think she made the right decision. Obviously, we don't really know where she's going right now, but
Right.
I think she needs a, a clean start. So yeah, definitely an impactful scene. And then we go on and Buck is looking at this place and the realtor said that she thought he would really like this place. It's light and airy, and Buck says how the one thing he really liked about his old place was that it didn't feel so new, it had character. And she tells him that she has another listing a few blocks from here and asks how he feels about Streamline Modern. And Buck is like, I guess how most people do. And she says how they'll look at it anyway. And she asks why he left his old place. And Buck says that it wasn't really his. He was just subletting. And we see Eddie moving back in. And Eddie asks Chris to get lunch before they unpack. But Chris says that a friend is having a party and he wanted him to come. And he's like, oh, okay, what time am I dropping you off? And like, Chris is the social butterfly. And I love that.
Yes, I love that.
And then we see Athena continually to walk, and then we go to Hen and Karen and Denny and Mara all together because they have officially adopted Mara.
Woo woo!
To be
Yay!
honest, I kind of forgot about the storyline because like we know that they got her back, but like they never really like came back to it. So honestly, I was kind of surprised to see this because I was like, oh right, that really hasn't been like officially finalized. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay, now it's official. We love it.
I'm not unhappy that they did leave it alone for a little while because so many of Hen's storylines just became like her and family, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but it was a little bit like, okay, give us something a little bit more. Like she's more than just a wife and mother. Like she's also an experienced paramedic, a talented woman, like all that. Yeah. Anyway, I was really happy that they kind of did branch away from that for a little bit, but it is so nice to finally like see like, oh right, like they hadn't finalized that right, as you said, Katie, and they have now finalized it, and Mara is their daughter, and I
She,
think that's just so cute. That just made me so happy. I'm
yeah.
just sitting there crying. I'm like,
Well,
ah.
it's just powerful too because knowing like they went through IVF and that like struggle and Karen not being able to get pregnant and then that trying to adopt Nia in like season
Oh.
2, 3, and not being able to
After the
do that.
heartbreak of Nia.
And then so just seeing that, and then thinking they were gonna have a little one, and then not having one, and so the journey they've had, it's nice to finally see them kind of full circle now that are finally getting to adopt Mara, and
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just good. I'm interested to see what storylines are going to come next season for them, since they have sort of resolved, at long last, the Mara storyline of will she stay a part of the family kind of deal, and well, clearly she has. And seeing Denny bang the gavel was very cute.
it was cool.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And then Athena makes it to where she's going, and we see everybody. We see Maddie and Shim in the hospital with Buck and Ravi standing there, Eddie, Mara, G, Hen, Harry, May, Karen, Denny. They're all there.
The whole
And we got
gang.
Cassie walking through, and as I saw her, I just had like this thought of like, in a way, she's the matriarch. Like, this is her family, and she's the matriarch. And there was
Oh
just
yeah. Love that.
that
connection.
little, I was like, oh, yes.
And they're all
Um,
smiling at her, like looking at her as she's coming in, and I was like, oh gosh, it was I love that.
and Maddie is holding the baby. And Chim takes him and hands him to Athena. And by the way, in the background of this, we can see G just like with her head in her hands, like watching her little brother, and it's so cute. So G's a big sister now. And then there's this music, and it finally fades, and Jim says, Athena, say hello to Robert Nash Han.
I knew it.
I love it. Okay, I did not expect it to be like Robert Nash, but I love it. And I feel like the opinions online about it are very mixed. Like a lot of people think it's weird that that's the baby's name. They're like, really? That's like the whitest name. And I'm like, guys, you do realize that Maddie's white? Why does it matter? Also, like people are like so obsessed with like kids having such like matching names, and I'm like, I hate that. Like, what does it matter? And I think it's so, like, in a sense, they do fit just because obviously G's named after her grandmother. And
Mhm.
obviously, you know, Robert is named after somebody very important in Chim's life. So they're both named after, like, very monumental people to
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
So I think it's
See,
so fitting.
here's the thing. I really like this name. And I saw a lot of people saying like, why Nash? Nash is the last name. Nash is not a good middle name. Nash is a first name. Nash
Mhm.
has been used as a first name before. It is a universal name. Get off your high horse.
Yeah.
Also, I'm really glad they just went with Robert Nash,
Mhm.
because that meant they were not picking between Daniel and Kevin.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, to the people that are saying, it was a white ass name, Daniel and Kevin were also white ass names.
Good point.
Yeah.
And Kevin was not white, I will remind you. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he had like a separate Korean name or something like that apart from Kevin. We don't know the state of that, but Kevin was a white ass name.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, but I'm glad they did not pick between the two of them. I'm glad they just went with Robert Nash Han. We don't know if they'll have a third child or if they're going to stay with the two. If they have a third child and it winds up being a boy, they can give him all the dead people names that they want. That's fine. It does not. I just think it's such a silly thing to be upset over what people name their own children, other than if it's cultural appropriation, just generally ridiculous or offensive. Like, don't name your child Adolf kind of deal. But like otherwise, just do whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
I might laugh over a few of them,
Right.
but I don't care.
Right.
It has so much meaning. So like,
Yeah.
why does it matter? Like, I can understand if people like or like I don't know, but like it's just I love it. That's
Right.
all I'll say about that.
And
Yes.
so I'll just finish. So I want to officially finishing the episode by Athena saying hello, Bobby, to the baby in her
Yes.
arms. It was adorable.
Guys, I
Hello,
cried
Bobby.
when I
I loved
heard her
it.
say that. I
Um,
started crying. I was like, oh my
Oh yeah,
God,
I was crying.
Bobby.
So I really like their choice of using this name. And Shim had said, he's like, he said in the funeral episode, I don't know what to do with that.
Mhm.
He died so I could live. And I don't know what to do with that. And when Buck said, you just live, it was like, this is Chim's way of living. and he's grown even in the last few episodes. And I think it's very important. And, they chose to name G after his mom because she was an important woman in their life or, in Chim's life that, he didn't have around anymore. And I think it's a very special way to honor Bobby's memory. So when, Robert gets older and he asks, well, where'd my name come from? Uncle Buck and Daddy Chim can say, like, yeah, we worked at this Firehouse 118 and this was our, captain, and he was a really important guy in our life. And those stories are going to be important to that kid because the kid's going to be like, he's going to think it's so cool that I'm named after such a cool guy, like, so
Right.
just, and so I know a lot of people, and they could have totally done like Robert Wade, but Nash is kind of a cool, and it's a middle name. It's
I
not
feel
like
like
he's
Nash is
go by
cooler.
Nash. So people
And
need
And
to
who
stop
knows, maybe the kid will grow up and want to go by Nash.
Yeah.
maybe, and that's
Like,
okay.
you never know. It's his fucking life. He can be called whatever the fuck he wants to be.
He might grow up and be like, I don't want to be Bobby, I want to be Robbie, and that's okay too.
Or
Like
just Robert.
There's
There's so
many
many
names for
nicknames he
like
could go
Robert.
by, which I think is cool. It's just such
Yeah.
a I love the name. I love the meaning behind it, and just obviously there is most likely a picture of Bobby at the station as well. I'm sure there's a memorial too. And like this
Mhm.
kid's gonna grow up probably like being introduced to that
Yeah.
and be like he's gonna see like who he's named after. And I did see the funniest thing online where somebody was like, I can just picture Buck like at the earliest age giving the kid like cooking utensils and be like, okay, it's time to live up to your name.
Oh,
Yes.
hilarious.
Give me Uncle Buck cooking lessons. I am here
Yes,
for
I
that.
mean G's already getting them, so Robert might as well too.
Yeah, that's a good point with the cookies. Yes, definitely. No, I'm very happy about it actually. And I had never thought that they would use Nash as a middle name, but again, I'm glad they didn't choose between the other two options that
I
people were
agree.
largely speculated on.
Yeah.
Um,
This feels just so much more fitting. And also, I was reminded of this, but so like at the end of last season, we had everyone surrounded by the bed, and then you see Bobby after that
Yeah.
whole thing, and then we get this, and it's just like the parallel, but also I'm just like, oh, that hurts that that was literally a season
Yeah.
apart finale wise.
yeah, but oh gosh, like obviously it hurts to be missing Bobby from that picture. Like we see again, as I said, kind of like Athena as the matriarch walking in, but we're missing Bobby as the patriarch of the family. And that hurts, that's for sure. But it's like a healing hurt, I think, and I think it's meant to represent like the healing hurt they are still going through. And it's going to be a
Right.
journey, right?
Oh yeah, grief
Yeah.
is not like linear. Everyone deals with grief like differently, obviously, and everyone's gonna go through their own journey. It's not easy, and it
Yeah.
other people might deal with it differently, or they might like move on easier,
Yeah.
but then others might not, which I think that's the interesting thing about like grief is how people deal with it and how different people grieve.
No, for sure. Yeah. I think I think overall it ended on a pretty good note, and I'm
Yeah.
happy about that. Like I have a lot of thoughts about this episode, but like this little ending sequence especially was just something I was very fond of.
Yeah.
It definitely
Yeah.
gives some interesting starting lines for where we start off on season 9.
Right. Well, and also I'm glad it closed up some storylines too, like the whole Mars storyline. I'm like, okay, well now we know for sure this happened, and Maddie had the baby because they totally could have like prolonged it and
Yeah, which I was
for the beginning of the next season, but why would they? Because I think there was a mention that she's like close to being pregnant or close to being done or something like that in a
I
previous
was
episode.
yeah. I mean, I was kind of confused about that because like it happened so fast it seemed like, and like I was just like, wait, so I thought she was like 6 months, but like me, I guess not. And I know the people said that Tim made a comment of how she would give birth at during this season that wouldn't be brought into season 9. So it just like seemed like in a point that things happened so fast.
Yeah. Well, I
Definitely did.
will say that so Buck had moved out of Eddie's place. Betty had had time to move back in. So there definitely was a time jump.
Well, also, like, so he just up and resold his place and about. I mean, I guess he probably made better money on it because he fixed up by that point.
Right.
But
Oh
like,
yeah, they totally dropped that storyline.
they dropped that so much.
Which
I mean,
honestly I'm
that's
okay with because like honestly maybe they'll mention something about it next season. I highly doubt it, but I'm just saying in general. And honestly, we don't care about that too much. I think the only thing that really people wanted was for him to be back in LA, and we all knew that was coming.
Yeah, we just didn't know how. But yeah, so I brought it up just to say, like, Eddie's moving in with their stuff. So he's obviously, they probably went back to El Paso long enough to Chris to finish his school year, Eddie to sell the house, pack up their stuff, and come back, which means gave Buck time to get out, which he didn't have to, but he wanted to. And he's trying to have his own, Buck's been trying to build his own foundation for a long time. And like he had the loft, but it was built on a girlfriend helping him pick it, another girlfriend living there, the couch drama. I think remember him asking a couple seasons ago about, is this because I don't have a couch?
And Bobby's
And
like,
Bobby being
what?
like, why don't you have a couch?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just, different things like that. So I'm hoping this is good for all of them. And we still don't know if Buck is going to be going to be transferred. We don't know if that's going to continue or if he has or what's going on there, but
I highly doubt it. Like they
I don't
kind of
know.
set
We'll
it
see.
up like he's staying, everyone's staying, so I highly doubt that will like happen.
Yeah, I would hate to see him outside of that 118 because I feel like, in a way, they said that, Bobby was the soul of the station, and I feel like Buck has kind of taken on that responsibility now, in a way. And I feel like, I don't know, it was just weird not having him there.
yeah, I mean, I obviously do not want to see Buck leave the 118, but I don't know. I have exactly one issue with Chim's speech. And it was a wonderful speech, don't get me wrong. It was a
Yeah.
wonderful speech. It was a great speech. But no, my one issue was that he said that you'd just be sad all alone. Buck's already being sad all alone.
Yeah, he kind of has been.
Like okay, one of the things of my existence as of late has been a lot of 118 bashing or a lot of 118 critical things coming out because of like them not really like being by Buck's side, not really supporting him, kind of shrugging off like what he has needed and his own grief and stuff. And I am not a 118 basher or anything like that. I hate those things. I hate it back in the lawsuit. I hate it now. However, I will say there is a bit of a point is that we have not seen Buck get comforted by his teammates. We have not seen them acknowledge his grief. We have not seen them talk to him about his struggles or anything. All we have seen is him get minimized and disregarded, and even kind of laughed about behind his back to some degree. I don't love that. And I think that is something they're not going to revisit, and I'm mad about it because this is kind of thing that I would want later discussions on and like some reconciliation. I don't think we're going to get that because I don't think the writers realize what they've done. But again, I'm not a 118 basher. I think there's a lot of different things going on there. We obviously all know what happened last episode with Eddie is a separate thing, and I have my separate feelings on that. But with the rest of them, not so much. The thing is that Buck has been sad by himself this entire time. So I think that's just my one issue is that Buck was kind of like in the way it kind of felt like Buck was kind of being accused of being selfish again or making it about him and not thinking of the 118, but he has been, and no one's been thinking about him. That's my issue with it. That's my main. So I can kind of understand why he was looking at a transfer, is because not only did Bobby die, but it's not felt like a family holding each other together. And obviously, some of that has to do with grief and how grief manifests and all that, but it's still, I don't necessarily blame him. And I'm just, even though I don't think we'll get it, what I would really love from next season is watching them start to repair that, but actually acknowledging that shit happened and that stuff was not handled as it should have been, instead of slapping a band-aid on it and moving on the way, again, I love this show, but 911 does that a lot.
Yeah.
Stop a band-aid on it, it's fine. Not even gonna stitch it up. It'll heal eventually. People will forget
Yeah,
about it.
a lot of shows do that.
A lot of shows really do. I think maybe that's a problem with TV shows, especially like emergency procedurals.
Yeah.
So
Which-
yeah, again, I'm trying my best to be delicate and not like actually shit on the show because I'm not trying to do that.
Right.
But I feel like this was maybe one of the biggest balls dropped in this entire storyline. This episode, like these series of episodes, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that I think Buck probably was coming from
Mhm.
an understandable place. So
Yeah.
that was a very long tangent, sorry, but that was actually one of my biggest things about this episode was
Mhm.
that it continued not to be a recognized thing. Was that Buck was still going through a lot by himself. So that was actually one of my biggest things about this episode was that. So perfectly on topic, just a little ranty. I will stop talking for right now in case if you want to say something else. I definitely do have a couple other things about this episode, but in case you guys want to say anything else at the moment.
I really struggled this last week because I didn't actually get to watch the episode till like Sunday night, and we're recording on a Monday. But since we last recorded about the previous episode, I've really been struggling because I'm a lurker. I lurk a lot, and I do that because I've been there, done that with the fandoms, and I've been hurt and burned before, and I'm really disappointed in the fandom in general. There's been a lot of dissension and a lot of attacking and a lot of anti and some bashing that I'm all over, like just all over. I'm not pointing fingers at any one thing. And I'm just really disappointed. I am so disappointed to a point where I don't even want to deal with the fans on outside of a specific topic because like us on the podcast interacting with the people that listen to our show, I'm totally down for. But it's like the fans, like when I was in the Glee fandom, just another Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk series, just, first 3 seasons I could handle. After that, it just, I lost. I was in one camp, everybody else was in another camp, and we had a lot of very young fans, and they didn't understand things. So then they would come in and they literally take over and like bash us to a point where it's just like it wasn't fun anymore. And honestly, that's how I'm feeling now. Like it's not fun anymore to interact with the fans because I'm literally afraid to say something online or even make a comment that I'm one way or the other or that I enjoy something because I might enjoy the other thing, but if I don't say that, then I'm bashed because of X, Y, and Z. And that's just in general. Like, and I'm like, and that's sad. I have loved this series since the beginning.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I can't even interact with the fans because I'm being judged for things that aren't even might be true. People blocking me on Twitter just because whatever it's called now. And I like it's a buddy fan and like I'm blocked. Why the hell? Like seriously. And even like and don't even get me started on the I like Tevin. I like Buddy. Period. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm just.
It's really hard to be a multi-shipper.
It is.
Yeah.
I will say.
It is.
Even as
And
someone who is not a multi-shipper in this fandom right now, I feel your pain because I tried that.
Right. And and I'm just. But in general, about all the stuff going on, I'm really disappointed. I'm like, guys, can't we be adults about this? It's a show. Like, I love this series and I want to continue to talk about it. But right now, because of the way some of the fans are acting, and seriously, there's amazing Tevin shippers, there's amazing Buddy shippers, there's amazing multi shippers. But then there's those bad eggs in each section that are ruining it for the rest of us. And I'm like, honestly, this episode, I wasn't a fan of. There were some good moments. I loved Chim's speech. And I'm glad that they did a little party for Eddie at the beginning. And I'm loved that there was an opportunity for Eddie to yeah, I'm going to go save my 118 family because we are a family. And he, that whole thing. And I loved Chim, pulling his phone away and saying, you're not going to Texas. And Buck, you're not transferring. And I love that there was some resolution. So I do like elements of this episode, but it was too rushed. There was a lot happened in this episode. And I felt like I watched a 2-hour episode in 42 minutes.
I think that's actually rather accurate.
And I'm sure
they
there
threw
was
a lot in there.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a lot of scenes that were cut out. I know there were
they
scenes
did
that were cut out.
Yeah, I know specifically people are talking about. So I saw the behind the scenes of this. It was essentially, I know Corinne who plays May, I remember the actor that plays Harry now, but they had did like this behind the scenes video where basically Eddie's party was supposed to like have some Texas elements to it, like they had cowboy hats on, they were dancing or whatever. And I know some people are like, damn, they really cut that, but it's just like that wasn't major to me, but I know that was specific, that scene or whatever that moment was supposed to be specifically was cut and
See,
stuff.
I think they suffered. I knew they would, was the thing, because of how we have done this before. They suffered from trying to make the whole emergency one episode and fit everything
Yeah.
else in too.
Yeah,
So the
which
emergency didn't feel
granted
as
they did
huge.
lead up, but like
True.
it's hard. Like it's very rare to do like a multi-episode emergency just for the fact of how you want the progression of the story to go. So I don't know. I get it, but I'm also like the emergent like I did enjoy the episode and I thought it was good and like I understand like other opinions on it. I just yeah, it was rushed, but like I don't know, there were certain things that didn't bother me about it. I the emergency did seem like pretty quick if I think about it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't have
There was a lot of montaging in this one, I noticed. Like
yeah,
even
I
looking at
didn't
as Grace was going through the notes, like there were times where like Hen's doing this and then like Chim's doing this, and they're like totally different scenes. And I was like, wow, and they're all kind of in that one little chunk because it's just the way it was back and forth.
yeah, I don't mind a montage, especially the end part. Like that one was good, but
Yeah, that
like
was
Love
really
ended
in the
montages.
middle of the episode having like just this like montage moment is kind of like confusing in a sense. I also think when you're trying to talk about it, it makes it even more confusing.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, it's
that's
like
Well,
you pick, oh, we're gonna talk about this specific like character and then like go to the next one, or do we just talk about linearly?
see, I think with my opinion of this episode, again, generally positive, but with definitely some neutral and criticism. I did generally like the episode. I think that without cutting anything or doing something majorly drastic, they did do the best with what they had. I
Mhm.
think it was like, yeah, it was. I think I agree that it was like a 2.5 hour episode in like 42 minutes, but they did decent pacing. Like, I did feel like the emergency got some attention, like some
Mhm.
attention that needed. It just was had to be really quick. I not that I would necessarily want the season to be any longer, but I think this could have benefited from having a couple more episodes in the season, like a 20 season episode instead of an 18, which I don't think we've gone beyond 18 before.
no, that's
Mhm.
pretty much standard. And I
Yeah.
think that's
But
becoming the standard in general for TV. TV shows don't do like long 24 episode seasons anymore. It's just not.
which granted, I don't know that I have the patience to sit through multiple seasons of like Supernatural's hard, man.
It is. It is.
It's really hard to get through. And even SWAT, like I haven't even gone to the end of the season, but they're like the first season, and yet every single season has 20 plus episodes pretty much from I can
Yeah.
tell, except for maybe the later episodes.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know.
a couple seasons that are actually kind of short because it was around one of the times of one of the other delays, COVID and something else. So there's a couple of shorter seasons, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. It is difficult.
Yeah.
And I guess saying like I didn't like the episode is not true because I did like elements of the episode. It was because it was so rushed, I felt like there was so much more I needed to process. So like trying to do all that in just a short 1 hour chunk was difficult.
Definitely. I did also I feel like I kind of want to talk a little bit about the hen and the like her not becoming captain bit, because I have said from the very get-go since we started here, like we started I since we started getting vibes of Bobby maybe retiring or something. Obviously we didn't expect this, but since Hen has been like his second, the substitute captain multiple times, it's been leading up to her being captain. And I have said since Bobby died, she was going to be the only one I wanted in that position. That remains true.
Mhm.
She is the only one I want in that position. With no disrespect meant to Chimney, I do love Chim. Don't get me wrong. And I will say that like acting Captain Han was like 6 seasons ago. He has grown up a lot since then. So I think I think if it wasn't for a couple of things, I would be a lot more for Chim taking the captain position. And even now, I'm not throwing in the towel or anything. I'm not mad. I'm not going on rants. I think that if it isn't Hen, I'll take it being Chim.
Yeah.
But for me, it does feel like I'm settling a little bit. Not in a disparaging way towards Chim. Sorry, I just have a couple more things I want to say about
No,
that.
you're good.
And not a disparaging way towards Chim. I love Chim, and I do feel like he could really grow in a leadership position, but we really haven't seen him take a leadership position. Like we haven't seen him be acting Captain Han again. Like we have seen him lead the paramedics, but he's never give really any indication that he wants to be captain. But even beyond that, I think at the core, I really wanted Hen to be captain. And so far, the only career advancement this show has had, like any whispers of, has been 3 instances now in total that I can think of. All of them involve the Black women of the show, so Athena and twice with Hen, whether because of the doctor, the medical storyline, and now this. And this is now the third time they have turned it down. Don't get me wrong. I think it's absolutely valid to turn down a promotion if you are where you want to be. It is okay to be happy where you are. You do not have to go into things for career advancement. You do not have to throw away what you love doing just because of paycheck. I am absolutely on board with that, and I was perfectly happy with Athena not taking the promotion originally. I was sort of, even though I wanted Hen to stay on my screen, I was a little iffy about her giving up the medical storyline because that just felt like it was all for nothing and Hen deserved like a career advancement. And now this, again, the only career advancement we've had whispers of before now. It's only the Black women that were involved with that, and each time they did not get career advancement.
Right.
I think it would be worse if they were promoting Buck or
Yeah, I
a
was
white
thinking
man
that.
to be a captain. I would have a lot more issue with that. Chim is an Asian man. That is a small demographic as far as firefighters go. So not saying there's not representation there. Like that's also great career advancement for him. So I think like as far as diversity goes, like they save themselves with that one a little bit. But I just think it's a sour taste in my mouth, at least, a little bit that this is just a pattern.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I will reserve my judgment as far as how Chim can do as captain until we actually see it in season 9. I think there's potential. I don't know. Okay, I'm done, I swear.
You make a good point. And I was thinking about this when Athena and Hen were talking, and it didn't even click until just kind of while we were recording this episode. Just looking at Fire Country. In the 48 house, they have firefighters, they have the captain, which is Jake, and then they have, well, this is before the season finale, so I'm not talking season finale of that one. Then we have Battalion Chief Leone, who is in the same firehouse, and then you have his wife, who's the next step up, and she's like kind of like a district chief. So in most fire departments, once you have your captain, who's the head of usually a house, you've got your lieutenants who are usually in charge of like different fire trucks, fire engines. And then you have a battalion chief, which usually is a job where you work out of maybe one station, but you're head of like 5 stations in the area. So I know there was talk of like Hen feeling like there was an advancement past captain, but there actually could have been for her, and it might be an option. So I do feel like there's more advancement for her if she's desiring for that. And like you said, Athena chose not to take the lieutenant or captain position but she wanted to do it because she wanted to continue to stay on the street and do the most helping, and you can't do that once you start getting up into the higher ranks. Yeah, so I would love to see Hen as fire captain, and maybe she'll have a change of heart in the season break between the seasons, or maybe it'll be Chim. And Chim was treated kind of poorly at the beginning of the series, in the flashbacks when he first joined the 118, and to see him come from basically being man behind for his probationary year most of the season, or most of that time, to possibly coming up to captain, that would be an interesting storyline. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what they're going to end up going with next season.
Yeah.
But I'm confident we know who the next captain is. Like, we've met the character before.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was an interesting setup that I wasn't expecting. I don't know. I like it, but I also like I'm kind of open. I think like a lot of things of this season are coming back up. I think obviously like in the Halloween episode there was that whole thing where Karen wanted Hen to like obviously be home for the kids on Halloween, but it's like no, she has to work. And I think I was thinking about that a lot with her possibly being captain and like that. And like, there's just so many moments where she hasn't been able to like be there for like have that family time, more like is a better way to say that.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably something that she's thought about because if you're captain, you can't necessarily be like, oh, yeah, I need to go do this with my family.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Which I
And
totally understand. And she's right. She wants to be a mom and she wants to have a relationship with her family. And, it is a very, there is more paperwork, more administrative work for sure.
right. Yeah, I don't know. Like I just think they were setting this up for a while and like yeah, sometimes you're like what you want does change.
Yeah.
And
My life, it definitely has.
I know
Mhm.
mine too. Like you don't always like what happens in life doesn't always pan out how you think. Sometimes your goals change. So honestly, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Again, I'm open, but I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
me and maybe I just have a slight issue. And maybe they'll even explore this next season. Maybe they'll explore Jim having a difficult time balancing work and family.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's hard because like we're all kind of in a way this is speculation because we don't know what's going to happen. So and we'll see. And maybe next season it'll all be about trying to figure out who the next captain is and the struggle of like, well, is it going to be Hen or is it going to be Chandler? Well, I want to have family and I want to be with my family and things like that. So totally, so many options.
I'm very curious to see what they're going to do next season. I really am. I'm really excited for next season, actually. Like, this season was a lot,
Right.
It
but I'm
was
excited.
a lot and a lot of unexpected. So I'm just like, that's my thing with all this because uh I don't know. I don't I've seen in shows where it's like the whole season of figuring out who's captain. I really hope they don't spend like half the season being like, will they, won't they,
Yeah.
who and who not. Like I think that is just like I'm not here for that. To be
Right.
honest,
Also,
like
perspectively,
I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Gerard's gone now. He's back to Hot Shots. Who would be taking over the 118 while they figure out a captain like position? Like, I don't know. Part of me feels like we're gonna go back and we're gonna open with our answer. Because surely we're gonna have a time jump. We usually
Yeah.
do between seasons.
Yeah, they usually do something a couple months.
So within a couple months, they've gotta like figure it out by then. Like, right?
I
Unless
hope
they
so.
have another substitute. I don't
I
know. I'm
do. I
very
hope
curious to
not.
see what they're gonna do here, but I feel like we have our answer.
Do you have fan thoughts?
Yeah. I actually really like the fan thoughts this episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I will always say this, the 118 is one big family, and the finale very much proved that. And I was excited when Maddie and Chimney said their baby's name.
Yeah. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. 118 forever. Bobby loved his 118 family so much. He will do anything to protect his family, including sacrificing his family. That is very
Yeah.
true. Yeah. So I really liked those. It was very much on par with the 118, I guess, is a good way to
Yeah.
put it.
Yeah, for sure. No, those are great fan thoughts. I agree. I guess now season thoughts. Like, I don't know. What are you guys feeling? Because I think I have a lot of things to say about this season.
I
But it's been a long season.
it feels like
Mhm.
such a long season.
Yeah.
Um, I honestly, my thoughts are all jumbled because like we mentioned, this season feels like 83 years. Like it feels like so long, and I don't always feel that way about like the season, but I don't know. I don't know if it was just because we went from Lone Star to 9-1, um, and like that's why it felt super long. But I don't know. It just felt like long, like, and I I don't know. Obviously, we had the huge loss, so like that is hard, and I uh I don't know. Obviously, we started the season off like pretty rough with Gerard being there, and then we got Bobby back like, close to the end of the
Yeah.
A season, and it feels like we didn't get enough time, so there's that too. And everyone's been like going on their own like journey, which yeah, that makes sense. But also it's like in the sense of like, I don't know, everyone I just feel like has been all over the place that honestly I just feel like I won't have like I liked the season, but honestly it didn't really like hit as good as like season 7 hit for me.
Oh, for sure.
Season 7 was just such a really good season, even with like the shortened season.
Right.
Um, it was a really good season. This season, I feel like we're got a little whiplash from. I feel like we were going everywhere with it, and that's kind of how I feel with it. There were episodes I really liked, but then I mean, I don't think there was any episodes that I really disliked. Maybe like the early ones. But I don't know, we've just gone through so much that I'm just like so like I don't know where we are. But overall, like I liked it. Obviously there were parts that I didn't like, but like it's definitely not a favorite for me, but it's also not like a least favorite for me. Like the seasons that I don't really watch much are season 1 and season 3. Those are like the seasons there's parts in season 3 that I do really like, but overall there are eras in season 3 that I don't like, which is why those are the least watched for me.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I just, what happened. I don't really know what more to say.
Um, yeah, we've definitely gone through a whirlwind. I feel like there's a twister spitting things out every kind of which way.
Yeah.
We've had, ups and downs, and not that every season doesn't have that. Not that every season is gonna have that. And yeah, you're right. Season 7, even as a truncated season, was interesting. But really good. We had a lot of great stuff happen in it, some not so great stuff. And season 8 has had a lot of ups and downs, friendship, relationships, all sorts of stuff going on. And I think it's setting up for things for next season. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I really liked some of the stuff that happened this season. I know that way it's weird because I feel like even the like Brad storyline from was like years ago, and it was just season 8A, But I think that helped too because, we are watching 911. And so we know that there's firefighters in the behind the scenes working with our favorite actors and actresses to help them make things look as real as possible. So to have it like meta like that, where they're the actors and there's like they're as the 118 watching the 119 on TV and reacting to that. I thought it was kind of interesting how they chose to do that. Um, it was kind of cute, just to get an aspect that we don't see every day. And a lot of times it's because they don't want to show it or that they don't know if it's going to be real. But that was actually kind of an interesting twist, something I wasn't really expecting. And then we go into the Eddie and moving to Texas, and I was like, I honestly didn't think he was going to do it, and then he decided to do it, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're actually going to do it, okay. And then Maddie disappearing and sticking around for that, and then him leaving, and the parallels of you know, Buck and Eddie and the whole Buck moving into the house, you know, paralleling what I'm currently doing in the middle of a move into my friend's house who's just moving to Vegas. And yeah, I just, you know, those parallels, and then the callbacks, like it's like crazy. Some of the callbacks with like that gal from season 3, and then she's back in season 8. You know, not to say that like they couldn't have reached out. I'm wondering how that came about. Like, it's like, oh, we want to bring that actress back, or is she related to somebody? And they're like, yeah, she'd love to come back for another episode, and so they come up with another storyline. I don't know. So it's just all these different things, and so it was a good season. There were some things I could do without, and I definitely am kind of have a hard time in the future when I do rewatch it to watch 15 and 16 and 17, and yeah, those the losing Bobby storyline. That's, I think, going to be really hard for me to go back to.
Yeah.
Like Katie with the season 3. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the lawsuit era, so I definitely skip over that for sure.
Yeah, that just makes me cringe so much.
Yeah.
I have a very complicated relationship with this season. Literally, our relationship status on Facebook is complicated. I would like to preface everything I'm going to say by I fucking love 911. It is sometimes a bizarre, silly show, but they tackle some really cool, like they tackle really interesting storylines. They have interesting characters and like things that happen. I just think they're such a good show, even with all their faults. This season is very reminiscent of season 5 and season 3 for me, where the first half of the season 3 with the tsunami notwithstanding, the tsunami is very separate from season 3 for me, even though it is literally the beginner. But like not so great first halves of the season. For me with season 3, it's a lawsuit era. With season 5, it just was felt very lackluster, and I really want to rewatch it and really see how I feel now as a very different fan of the show from who I was when I first started watching that. But I really had an issue with season 8A for a reason, but also to some degree, I sort of miss one of my biggest gripes with the season or the show was Brad. Like I kind of miss him being my biggest problem with the season. So I will say he remains one of the larger ones, though in a sort of nostalgic way. But I think the episode, like I think the season had some really good elements with taking down the congresswoman, with regulating Gerard to a place where he can't really do any harm. Even if I have very complicated feelings on what they did with his character. Because what do you mean he's suddenly just a pathetic grandpa and they're not addressing anything else? Definitely have some issue with that, but I'm glad they resolved that. Definitely sad that we did not get a lot of time with Bobby this season, like at the helm, with everything considered, for sure.
Yeah.
But I will say we do have seasons worth of that at least to fall back on. Bobby has been at the helm for a long time. I think I maintain that as hard as Bobby's death was, I do actually really love the episodes. Because they're so tragic, but they were so well done. And I would even venture to say I think they were some of the best done episodes of the season. 15, 16, I think they were some of the best done. Again, tragic, hard to watch, hard to deal with, but beautiful. I will not be rewatching 817 anytime soon. I cannot deal with the triggers. I have to look after my own mental health. And not even going to dwell on that, but obviously this season has changed me a lot as a fan, and my relationship with the show and some of the characters on it has been very altered. I think that's maybe my biggest thing with this entire season, is that both because of how long it took and because of things that happened both inside the show itself and outside in the fandom, I have changed a lot as a fan. So I
Yeah,
think
me
it's gonna be
too.
yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting to start season 9. And rewatch the rest of I have a goal to rewatch the rest of the show. As someone who's a very different fan from when I first started, and even from who I was in season 7. Well, season 7, it was so fucking good. I really am interested to see what I'm gonna feel like when I watch it. But I think again, I just have a complicated relationship with the season. I'm seeing a whole lot of nothing. I realize that I'm just jabbering on, so I'll probably stop. I as I'm sitting here though talking about it, I think I've sort of decided that I'm gonna take a little bit of a break from fandom this summer, maybe focus on writing, but kind of take care of myself. I have a lot of stuff happening in my life soon, and I need to be able to put my
Mhm.
energy where it's gonna be rewarded. But I still love this show. I'm very interested to see what happens in season 9, but season 8
Yeah.
was a fucking roller coaster.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to 9. Yeah, I definitely break from the fandom. My friend too is like, she's like, I'm done with the fandom. She's like, I'm gonna stay in fan fiction, and she's like, and her and I kind of want to ignore what happened in 17 because we're like, yeah, we're just that whole nope. I pretend it didn't happen because I'm like, I can't. Mm-mm. And yeah, season 9's gonna be interesting. I'm excited for it, but yeah, I just
Yeah, I almost feel like I need to watch something else or consume different content before I even think about a
yeah,
rewatch too.
I
Because
need a
I feel
break.
like
That's so fair.
not because of like any fandom stuff. It's not because of that at all. I just feel like I need to watch something different. Like yes, there are shows that I watch like in the same time as like 911. But I feel like maybe I got too used to 911 where I have to go watch something else if that makes sense. Um
I think that makes sense. Coming back to it with new eyes as well, experiencing something else. Our media consumption is not just 911.
Right. Yeah.
I'll
No.
for sure talk about 911 probably a lot during the hiatus, but
Oh
like
yeah.
I feel like I
Oh
need
yeah.
to watch something else just to do that.
Right. No. Yeah. We'll hear about things and like, hey, yeah. So we'll keep in touch, and
Oh,
we'll
for
be on
sure.
our Discord chatting, I'm sure. But yeah, I definitely am kind of yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm just really upset with the fandom right now and the way some people are acting, and I need a break. I have enough stuff going on in my own life. I don't need,
Yeah.
um,
Real.
you know, and people are like, well, why do you write the way you do? Like, because I want to call you sweet romance because I don't write like a lot of drama and all that stuff. I mean, I do, but not to the extent of like some shows take it. And I'm like, I got enough drama in my own damn life. I don't want to write about it. Like, I don't need it.
Felt that.
Felt the fuck out of that. Plus, like like I think I agree that I'm gonna try and watch other stuff as well because I have such a long watch list
Me
of stuff I want
too.
to do, and not even just of shows, of movies. Like for example, I have not seen most like classic Disney movies, so I want to try tackling most of those. Like I watched Emperor's New Groove the other night for the first time. Fucking
I
love
love that
that
I
movie.
movie.
love that movie.
For the leather, crunk, crunk leather.
I love that movie.
Anyway, but stuff like that. Like I have a lot of stuff I want to do. And I also feel like separating myself, not in even in like a negative way, but just separating myself a little bit from 9-1 will mean that I'll be able to come back very fresh towards it. Obviously, we will all be on our Discord. We'll all be talking to each other about it.
Right.
We're not fully gone, which I think we're just taking a space from like a break from
Like,
like larger spaces, maybe. At least for me, that's what I'm gonna do.
I hear
And I just think I still have such a deep love of the show that I am kind of looking forward to like taking care of it and nurturing it and kind of taking care of myself at the same time because I'm very tired.
you. No,
Yeah.
we've lived a lot in this last year and it's like we had September, we're pretty consistent September through like Thanksgiving, and then we had a huge break until like January, and then we had a few episodes, and then there was another break, right before the in between Bobby dying and then the funeral episode. So then I was like, it's just such a long Yeah. But I'm glad it was
mean-
only 18 episodes because I don't know if I could have handled any more.
I know.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And just like in general, we've been like talking about these shows since like September. I mean, I know we did take like a little holiday break and like the end of December until I want to until like around when Lone Star came back for to finish out the episodes. And then we talked about 901 literally all the way straight through essentially. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does feel like just so much has happened and like a lot has happened. Just it feels like a lot.
Right.
Yeah. And dealing with I think dealing with the loss of Lone Star too a bit. Like
Yeah.
we had to finish out the finale for that. And like I know I think I was the one with the most mixed opinions about the finale of Lone Star, and I think I would be I kind of when I do my rewatches eventually, which I don't think I'm going to do during the summer, at least for Lone Star, but I do want to rewatch Lone Star. I kind of want to see how I feel again when I finish out the show.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. I think if I do it, I'm going to do it maybe in January when we have like a longer break.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to make that like a tradition anyways, since it
Mm-hmm.
usually had been in January to kind of watch it. Like I've randomly in my brain, like I've just been thinking about different storylines in Lone Star a lot recently. Like the other day, I was thinking about the snowstorm, and I'm like, I really want to watch that again because that was my favorite like emergency they ever did on Lone Star.
Mm-hmm.
It was
So
so well
it
done.
was so good. Like I want more
Mhm.
emergencies just in general in the 911 universe like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that those were so good that I'm just like I want something like that.
Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. Be sure to check out our website at 911lsroundup.com. And you guys can also follow the podcast on our socials at 911LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. As always, be sure to join our Discord server. The link will be in the description of this podcast and also on our website.
You guys can follow me, Katie, at For the Love of Tarlos on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at RunandRafa911 on Instagram and Threads.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Threads. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.